Welcome to Inspirational Transformational TV show. Amy Whitney here today with my very special guest, Jason Cook. Jason takes us on a journey today, on his soul's journey, really, from his early childhood to where he's at today, through the struggles, through the triumphs, through the transformation. It is the most beautiful story, the most beautiful unfoldment to an absolutely beautiful soul. Sit back and enjoy the Jason Cook story. Jason Cook, thank you so much for joining Inspirational Transformational TV show today. Now, traditionally I like to start and have the guest take us on a bit of a journey. So I was reading on your website, even from your childhood, you could, correct me if I'm wrong, see spirits, feel actually what people had been through or what their actual history is. And as a child, that was, can you say, sometimes traumatic?
So as a child, from the earliest time that I could remember, I could sense energy. I could feel it almost like a piece of clothing that you might put on. I could sense it, I could taste it, I could see it. And for me, because that wasn't really part of my upbringing, my domestication of sorts, I guess, to understand what that was, it was kind of put to the side. And for me it was could be very traumatic, because I would see things and not know what to do with that. And in being in a Judeo-Christian background, that was considered evil. That was considered the work of the devil, of Satan. And that started me on a course of an obsessive compulsive reaction to what I was sensing. And I started washing my hands, I started spitting, I started having compulsions like shutting lights on and off, and wanting to wash the clothes. If I bumped into someone and I felt their energy and I felt dirty, I'd want to wash those clothes. I'd want to get rid of them. And later on my journey in working with a shaman, they said that was a very intuitive thing as a child, that water is a cleanser of sorts. It's a way to ground the energy. And you intuitively were trying to ground the energy without knowing really how to do it. So yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And I remember very much, it was around 4 and 5 where it really started to become an issue with not only myself, but people actually noticing me washing my hands and feeling awkward and scared.
And this way of dealing with the energy, is this what led you into learning energy medicine, or am I missing a whole bunch in between?
So, like all of our journeys, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. So there are some pieces missing. As I got older, I was always spiritual. The Judeo-Christian background that was presented to me didn't fully resonate with me. Parts of it did, parts of it didn't. And it kind of put me on a search for something different, something that more resonated with my spirit. Although because of the domestication of that, there was a lot of guilt and a lot of fear of changing course. and that presented its own anxieties. So I would say I was always spiritual. I was always looking for my path, my spiritual path, and it kind of waxed and waned probably up into my late 20s when I finally had a nervous breakdown.
Now, at the time of your nervous breakdown, were you a professional musician? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
And had music always been part of your life?
It has.
Yeah.
It has been.
It's beautiful, what I've seen of yours. Is it alright if we put a little clip in here of your music?
Absolutely.
Alright,
Yeah.
fantastic. When you had your nervous breakdown, would you call that rock bottom?
Yeah, that was very much a point in my life where I thought I was going to die. It was a death. And it took almost a year to recover from that to a point where I felt comfortable being in public, being with groups of people. It was literally like happened. I was watching a movie with my wife, and I just started to feel a little bit off, and I had been getting periodically kind of that type of anxiety where it feels like you're having a heart attack, that pinch in your arm and side of your chest, and then all of a sudden I just became overwhelmed, and it was like the anxiety valve got turned on, and it wouldn't shut off, and I couldn't swallow, I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I went to bed and I couldn't sleep, and it just progressively got worse and worse, and it didn't get better in the morning, and then it was really starting to freak me out because I thought, I'm going crazy. This is what it's like. I'm going crazy and I'm going to die. And I'm going to lose all sense of myself. And I ended up going to the doctor, which then referred me to an anxiety clinic in Hamilton, at McMaster. And I had never officially been diagnosed with OCD or anxiety. Although in the 80s, I remember coming home and watching an Oprah episode and finally realizing she had a doctor on talking about OCD. For the first time I ever heard that word or that acronym, and I realized that that's probably what I was displaying in my existence, and I kind of tried to treat that myself, but when the breakdown happened, I went and they officially diagnosed that, and I had wanted to talk. I had wanted to somehow treat this in a way that was more organic, and they basically said that we really don't do that this way. You just take the medicine, take the antidepressants, and you'll be better. You'll feel better. And I had a real aversion to that. I was as scared of the anxiety as I was of the medication. But I didn't feel like I had a choice at that point because I was so I was displaying such physical symptoms that I needed something. I needed something to bring those physical symptoms back into balance. So I would say that I was on antidepressants for probably 2 years. But at a certain point I just realized that it just wasn't my path, and I decided to start weaning myself off them. And I had gained 80 pounds while being on them. and they say you don't gain weight on antidepressants. But everyone I talked to that was on antidepressants seemed to have the same story, yet no one really talks about that aspect of it. But I gained an enormous amount of weight, and I decided one day that I needed to get back onto my path, that I had lost myself, I lost the connection to my spirit. And so I started with the Course in Miracles again. I had picked it up, I had bought it, my mom actually bought it because I again, watching Oprah back in the I think it was the early 90s this time, and Marianne Williamson being on the show and talking about her book, her first book, Return to Love, which was a reflection of the Course in Miracles. And I read her book about 3 or 4 times, and it just blew me wide open as far as, this is more what my spirit is calling me about. This is more in line with my path. And so my mom bought me the Course in Miracles, and I started reading it, and it resonated and it didn't, and there was guilt and there of veering from what I thought was the only path, or domesticated as the right path, into something very unknown. So I put that book down several times and then picked it up over the years, and then after my breakdown and starting to get back on my path, I really dove into it, and from there I remember praying to be guided to a book or a teacher that would help me on my path. And I picked up a book in chapters called The Psychic Pathway by Sonia Choquette, and I started paging through it, and it totally resonated with my soul. And so I started reading it, and I started doing the exercises and starting to heal. And from there I asked for a teacher to come into my life to help guide me through this book. And I came across a woman named on Sonia Choquette's website, because she has practitioner names of people that have been certified in her medicine. And her name was the person that I ended up picking, and I don't know why, because it was in Oregon, was Elaine LaJoy. And we started working, and she was a shaman, along with being a practitioner of Sonia's six-sensory medicine. And we continued to work through Sonia's book, and she started to do energy medicine on me, which I had no idea what that was, but I was open to it. I was open enough, and I was at that point, I was kind of in that place of 5-sensory, 6-sensory world, where it's like, I have no idea why you're shaking a rattle, why you're spitting spirit water, but I just paid you an enormous amount of money at the time for me, which was $100 an hour. So if you say, go build an altar, I'll do it. If you say, go take a sea salt bath with baking soda, I'll do it. I'm willing to try it. And the money kind of anchored me into at first to do the work.
Yes.
Because of the energy that it held with me, that I was committed to. If I spent the money, then I would honor the commitment to that, not knowing what a soul retrieval was, not knowing what an underworld extraction was. But she worked on my OCD and anxiety, and it had already been 5 years since I had picked up the guitar and did anything with music. Because of the trauma just before the nervous breakdown, I had spent time in LA, and I had went through, for me it was very traumatic. It brought up a lot of wounds with the OCD, and we were living very sparsely. We weren't getting paid. We were brought there to get experience. That was kind of like the Canadian way in to the American music industry. And so I was working at a studio, and we were sleeping in a U-Haul, and wouldn't be able to shower for days at a time. And so that, coupled with OCD and anxiety and the whole energy thing that I didn't understand yet, really started to work on me. And I ended up coming home and leaving that opportunity, which I felt I failed at. I felt like I let myself and a good friend of mine down for bringing me there in the first place. Later to realize that was exactly the perfect opportunity, and that I really didn't fail, that I succeeded in exactly what I needed to do. It gave me exactly the momentum that I needed to finally shift the wounds that I had been carrying up until 30 years old. And so working with the shaman, I was able to clear the OCD, clear that anxiety. And I had done years of behavioral therapy on my own. I'd done behavioral therapy with psychologists. I just didn't take the antidepressants and listen to the psychiatrists that the medicine was that. But I tried the Western ways, and nothing worked. Nothing really worked. And then I started this energy medicine. I fell into it, and I didn't know what it was, but I trusted, and it shifted. These things, these wounds were gone. And in doing my homework and doing the work that she gave me, I started to create a new life. And I started to have visions of having my own healing practice, which at the time I thought was absurd. And she said, "No, it's not. You are a healer." She says, I've known it since we started working, and this is totally possible. So I went and got certified with Sonia Choquette to start with. I had a vision of a name called Souls in Progress that came to me in a meditation, and I was handed a feather from a spirit guide called White Bear, and that it was time to start walk my path and do my medicine. And so from there, I came back and I started practicing intuitive counseling, intuitive direction. But then I felt like I could do music again, and I started writing. And the friend that I had left in LA years past became, became established. Started making his own way, and had major label connections, and working with major label artists. And I sent him some of my music, and he said, "I always loved your voice. Why don't we do something? Why don't we work together?" And so that's how I got back into music and did the record that you have heard, which is All Our Hands Are Dirty. And I spent about 2 years in LA learning, walking my soul path. And at a certain point, I recognized that it was time to come back, that part was done, that this record wasn't part of that music machine bottleneck that all the bands fall into and kind of go and try to get noticed. That this music was going to touch the world and be presented to the world in a different way, and it was going to be through the way that I do workshops and do healing work through my medicine. So I came back, and as soon as I came back, I had an opportunity to start studying with the Four Winds, which is Alberto Villato's, who's a psychologist, psychotherapist, doctor, anthropologist, who went to Peru 25 years ago to study psychosomatic illness in the brain, and brought back their energy medicine and started incorporating it into his practice, and then recognized that what he could do in 2 sessions of energy medicine he couldn't usually touch with years of psychotherapy, and just started a school, started a movement of this energy medicine, this Peruvian energy medicine, and has basically touched every continent in the world with it now. And it's a very, very interesting, powerful wisdom path. So,
can I read you a quote that I got off the Four Winds site?
Sure.
And just have you talk about it, because
Absolutely.
I love it. Sacred technologies that transform the body, heal the soul, and change the way we live and die forever. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So that exists. What does it take to shift that into mainstream? And why isn't it mainstream?
And so I would say that it's becoming mainstream, and people like Alberto and Sonia Choquette, and all the Wayne Dyer and all the people that you see at Hay House have been bringing it, have been kind of like the frontier leaders in it, but it is mainstream, and people are seeing the benefits of this wisdom. The medicine wheel is a sacred technology, and it's not just Peruvian, Andean, it's North American. There's forms of it in Asia and in the East. It's everywhere, and now it's being embraced, because we're starting to see that we actually do create our world with our intention, that science is actually meeting the sacred technology now, and we're seeing that if we put our attention on protons and quantums, that they actually move with our intention, that everything is made of light, and that what we focus on, we create. And in that, healing exists. And this is something that the wisdom keepers have always known. But there had to be a point of not had to be, but there was the point of the sacred feminine, the Mother Earth being brought down, and the sacred masculine being brought up. And you see that in the more Western religions, the Christianity, where the woman has always, or that sacred feminine aspect has always been put down. And in the more indigenous cultures, the sacred feminine has always been equal, if not higher, in how she's been held and how she holds life. But there's always been a sacred balance between those two, and that is coming back. That's what the shifts that they talk about of 2012, that's happening now. It's not like 2012, the world's going to fall apart. It's going to be back together again. It's an opportunity for us to bring our sacred masculine, sacred feminine into balance, to recognize that we hold both, that we hold the potential of being everything and nothing.
Beautiful. Will you take a moment and tell the audience about some of the practices that you use in your practice?
Sure. So, when we're trained, it's like kind of any other practical work. You learn processes, and then those processes become your art. And so I've learned the process of illumination, which is a technology of scoring clean from the luminous energy field, which holds the blueprint of being, which holds the template of health, which is the energetic blueprint which instructs your body on all levels, hormonal, cellular, DNA, how to create itself, manifest itself. But during trauma, from past life, this life, 2 days ago, if we're not able to process it in a healthy way to clear that energy, our luminous energy field gets marred with these imprints. And these imprints run like computer viruses, dormant a lot of times until triggered. And then they run, and we know they're running when we're caught in patterns, and we see those patterns in our life. And so the illumination process is one way of going into that luminous energy field and clearing that imprint, so that your body can pull from a clean slate, from that true template of being, and not the imprint or kind of computer virus that's over top of it, telling your body to miscreate. So it's a form of energetic surgery. In that process, we also work with the chakras, also balance the chakras, very much like Reiki. But this goes deeper. This goes way deeper. And then from there, the illumination is kind of the core practice. We do extractions, which is a process of removing intrusive energy from a person's luminous energy field. And that intrusive energy or intrusive entity can be a past life story, a current life story. It can be a loved one that has died and jumped to you because you share an affinity with that person. It could be a plethora of things, but we go in and we pull that energy out, but not in the same way as a priest would do in exorcism, because we believe that if you hold an entity or an energy, that it also needs healing, that it's one of our clients. So we have 2 clients on the table at that point, and that energy that we pull out, we do fire ceremony and release that to the organizing principles that it will use, and or that will come forth to give it the healing that it needs to resolve back into the one. So it gets healed and the client gets healed. There's no casting into darkness. There is no fear. Just love.
Without breaching confidentiality, do you have a favorite, besides your own healing story, or something that you can share with the audience that you've seen occur that's you would consider miraculous or beautiful?
There's several. I had a client come in with a hairline fracture in a cast, kind of a soft cast on her leg, and we started talking about why this needed to happen. why this wound needed to happen in her life, and the gift of why this happened, the opportunity. And then I did a healing on it. I did an illumination on it. And she just looked at me and she said, "My leg feels better." I said, "Great, perfect." And no, she said, "It really feels better." Like to the point where I can walk on it. And I said, "Great." And she got up and she started walking. And she took her cast off. And she walked some more. And she said that it's healed. And does it always happen that way? Does it always manifest in the physical that way? No. But it needed to for her. And it did. I have a client who had throat cancer, and she came to me and she said, "I know why I have throat cancer now. Just because I never got to speak my truth. As a child, I never spoke my truth. My parents wouldn't let me, and then as a mother, I didn't want to do the same to my kids. So I didn't speak my truth to them. But cancer saved my life." And she gave up the chemotherapy for natural energy medicine because the chemotherapy nearly killed her. And she had to get a tracheotomy because she almost died in her own blood. And while lying on the table, we cleared that medicine, or cleared that wound, and she got up and she said, "I know that cancer saved my life because I now have a relationship with my children that I never had before, and they were always waiting for me to just invite them in, and cancer allowed me to do that." So sometimes the healing is on the energetic, sometimes it's on the soul level, sometimes it's mental, in the mental and the thought process, and sometimes it's physical, and sometimes it's all at the same time. And sometimes it needs to filter down. Sometimes the energy shifts and they don't notice anything. But in 3 days they're calling me and saying, "Wow, I didn't even realize that you did this, but I'm feeling better, and my back doesn't hurt anymore. Or this doesn't bother me anymore."
I have a question about, I hear almost like two streams of healing these days. I hear the group who say affirmations, only focus on the positive and the rest falls away. And then the path of you need to go into the pain and remove it. Are they two different paths, or am I missing the point?
And so then I would maybe introduce a third path.
Okay.
I would say go into the pain and don't resist it. Don't remove it.
Right.
Welcome it. Because it's there to give you a gift. It's there to point you to your divinity. And in our divinity, we're everything. Nothing can be excluded. If one thing is excluded, then we're not one. And that means that we have to embrace the murderers inside of us. We have to embrace the dark, evil thoughts that come into our minds. Maybe some of the dark things that we've done. We have to welcome that in. We don't have to indulge it. But it needs to be in the room of awareness. Not in a closet. It needs to be in the room so that it can be honored and thanked. And then we have a choice. do I want to stick a knife in this person, or do I want to choose something else? Yes, they're frustrating me, but do I really want to stick a knife in this person?
So it's an empowerment.
It's an empowerment, but it's a recognition that we are everything. In that recognition, judgment needs to fall away. Because if we're everything, then we're judging ourselves. It's that great mirror, right? Whatever we judge on the outside is what we're resisting on the inside.
When you look at your life today and you reflect back on your past, you can see and feel grateful for everything that occurred, even at the darkest point.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Do you find in your practice or just in your own observations that depression, anxiety is on the increase? Because I read it in the media, but I don't necessarily have to believe the media.
Anxiety and depression are I don't know if it's on the rise, but it's talked about more.
Okay.
I think it's more accepted that that it's a disorder and that there's a clinical name for it. And I think people are recognizing it more and more that as they become more conscious, that they're not living a conscious life, that they're not living their soul path. In that not doing that, they feel lost. They don't know who they are. And in not knowing who they are, they get afraid, they get scared, they get depressed, they feel anxious, they feel like they have to run from the demons, embrace the light, embrace the good, don't look at the bad. But the bad is overwhelming me right now. The sadness is overwhelming me. What do I do with that? I'll take a pill. Instead of allowing it to point to what it's really saying. Go paint. Paint a picture.
Yeah.
Well, I can't paint. I've always been told I was not a good artist. So how can I paint? It won't be any good. But the soul says paint. So when are you going to honor that? When are you going to actually step in and allow yourself the freedom to be with your spirit and allow it to express itself in the ways that it does in the mythic? So a lot of my clients do suffer from depression and anxiety, and a lot of them have done the antidepressants and are on antidepressants and are feeling like this is the last straw. This is it. Like a lot of my clients will come in and have a story of suicide. That they're done. This is it.
That's I get that feeling from so many people that I see out there as well, and that's why I'm sort of going down the road with you, because it's like I don't know that the options that people have, like when they're in that dark space and they're going to their GP or who are doing the best they can, I don't know that it is out there so much that there's other ways. And I love your story of transformation and your understanding of it and what you're doing. I know there's so much more to you, but I really think it's beautiful. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
Your biggest inspiration in life?
I have a lot of inspirations. I don't know if I could limit it to one. I really don't know. I've been inspired by my parents. I've been inspired by my family. I've been inspired by some of the great spiritual leaders. Yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day,
Yes.
and hearing his speech again on Oprah. I wasn't watching Oprah, but my wife had it on, and I was walking through, and it was like, inspiration, right? a lot of the medicine people that I've never even met inspire me, that I've met on an energetic level inspire me. Jesus, Mary Magdalene, equally inspire me. So, lots. My daughter, my baby daughter, I look into her eyes and she inspires me. So.
And your final words of wisdom today?
I would say that if you're really looking for healing, if you're really looking to find yourself, start with the places that you resist the most and sit with them. Sit with them with an open heart and allow them to speak to you. And don't judge them and don't judge yourself. Allow them in and embrace them. Because as you embrace all the pieces of yourself, the sinner, the child molester, the murderer, the pure darkness and evil, you can also embrace the saint, the sage, the angel in you. And when you can reconcile them all, you can see that they're all just a story. In that where you reside is in the no thing, in the unmanifest, in that place yet to be formed. Because in that form we have the duality, but our spirit resides in that place of no thing or nothing, in everything. So, I would say, embrace yourself, all of it. And in doing that, that's the healing. I think, just to add to this, Don Martin, a shaman from Peru, was up and we were doing a dispatchal ceremony, which is a healing bundle, a prayer bundle for Niagara and the waters here. And he looked at us and he said, the only thing that you need to be a shaman is an open heart. So, embrace your own open heart and be a shaman and share that with someone else and you will move mountains.
Thank you. Jason, thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing yourself today. You vibrate in the space of love. You are an absolute joy and blessing to be around. You're a gifted healer, a beautiful musician, and I can't say enough warm thoughts about you. So many blessings, much love.